Thomas the Tank Engine was miserable. Since Percy's accident, the Fat Controller had asked him to pull coaches and trucks in the yard, as well as pull Annie and Clarabelle. "I get no rest, I get no rest," he groaned. When the big engines heard about Thomas complaining, they laughed and teased him. "Working hard," teased Henry. "That's right, too much hard work for you, I suppose, little Thomas," added Gordon. "Shut up," fumed Thomas. "As I remember, the last time you engines had to shunt your own coaches, you went on strike, and Edward, Percy and I had to do your jobs for you. You're just idle engines." Before Gordon and Henry could answer, Thomas huffed away. Henry and Gordon laughed to each other. The next day, Thomas brought Annie and Clarabelle to the junction. The Fat Controller was waiting for him at the platform. "Thomas, I need you to go to the big station as quickly as you can. Gordon's coaches are waiting to be shunted before Henry arrives with his train." "Yes, sir," said Thomas wearily. By the time Thomas got to the big station, he was exhausted. "I feel so tired," he puffed. Gordon had left his coaches at the station and were waiting to be shunted onto the bay platform. Then when Henry arrived, Thomas would have to take Henry and Gordon's coaches to the main sidings. Thomas shunted into the station and the fireman got out to couple Thomas to the train. The driver and station master stood on the platform. Soon they returned on board Thomas. "Come on, Thomas," his driver and fireman called, but by now Thomas had fallen asleep. The station master blew, his driver and fireman sounded Thomas's whistle. They even tried to build up steam, but it was no good. Just then Henry arrived. He saw that Thomas was blocking his way. "Poop, poop," whistled Henry. "Out the way!" But Thomas still didn't wake up. The station master spoke to Henry and his driver. "You'll have to shunt Thomas and Gordon's coaches out of the way," he said. "We must let the passengers out." The passengers were grumbling, which made Henry even more cross. So Henry shunted up behind the coaches and pushed Thomas out of the way. Later, Henry shunted his and Gordon's coaches, as well as Thomas, into the main siding. Thomas remained asleep in the siding all evening. The next day, Gordon and Henry fussed into the yard. Thomas was still asleep. Gordon and Henry looked at each other. Then Henry let out a big whoosh of steam. This time, Thomas awoke with a start. "Well, well, well," teased Gordon. "Who's this idle little engine?" "It looks like Thomas to me. Perhaps he's on strike," said Henry. "It looks like Thomas, but it can't be," sniffed Gordon. "Thomas said only us big engines are idle. You would never catch Thomas being so idle as to fall asleep in stations and sidings." The teasing continued, and Henry and Gordon thought it was very funny. But Thomas thought the big engines were being very silly indeed.